Human trafficking is the fastest growing and second largest criminal enterprise in the world. It's a $150 billion industry with more than 4 million victims across the globe.
It took 6 days for the sheriff's office to find 108 people trying to buy or sell sex in Polk County.
India's problem with child trafficking existed long before COVID-19.
Turning to another important story, the FBI reporting that more than 80 children were identified and located in a national sex trafficking ring this month.
Dozens of missing children rescued in Georgia during a sweeping sex trafficking bust.
दिल्ली में सिर्फ 15 दिनों के बाद ही मानव तस्करी की एक और रैकेट का पर्दाफाश हुआ है। साउथ दिल्ली में एक घर से 19 लड़कियों को रेस्क्यू कराया गया।
Trauma that the survivors enrolled in our program have gone through.
सिगरेट की छक्का देते थे,
पर बहुत मारती है।
जो लड़की कम उम्र में जा तो वहाँ पे वो दवाई देती है, थे उम्र लगती थे ऐसी दवाई देते थे।
ना मेरा को मारा, अभी वो मेरा बदन में से दाग है।
কাঠির লাঠির গায়ে পেরেক দিত, দিয়ে ভালো করে করে আর ওইটার বাড়ি বাড়ি মারতো। তো আমার এই জায়গায় এখনো পর্যন্ত সেই দাগটা আমার কাছে আছে। সেই দাগটা আমি এখনো সেই দাগটা আমার এখান থেকে মুছে যায়নি, কিন্তু আমি তবু ওখান থেকে আমি বাঁচতে পারিনি। একটা বছর আমি ওখানে ছিলাম, তো একটা বছর আমি ওখানে।
This past June, I had the privilege of visiting a shelter home for sex trafficking survivors in Mumbai. I spent the afternoon there with the girls, just listening to their stories, and the purpose of my visit was to see how IHC For HER's program had empowered these girls and how they had benefited from it. But I think that day I left with much more than that. I walked into the main hall where there was this big wall that the girls had been given the freedom to just paint whatever came to their mind on this wall. And almost every girl just painted the picture of a house. And I think that just showed her longing for a safe place that she could call home. But every girl in that home was extremely determined to do something with their life. The one story that sticks out to me the most was that of I remember the moment I walked into the classroom, the average age of the girls there was 13 to 15 years old. They were all sitting in school uniforms, cramped 4 to 5 to a bench and trying to focus on a lesson that was being given by one of their own. But amongst them was someone who seemed noticeably younger, and she was not in a uniform. She was wearing this neon pink t-shirt, and that was I later learned that she was only 9 years old, and she had been there for about 3 years now. Lived in Denmark with her parents, and when her mother passed away, father brought her back to India. His own father began abusing her, raping her, and then eventually sold her to a brothel when she was only 6 years old. She was much older. She was probably 26, 27 years old. She had been at the home for about 8 or 9 years. She was studying at college in Pune, came from a middle-class family. Her dad was a lawyer. And when she was in college, her own boyfriend at the time sold her to a brothel. And while her parents were searching for her, she was sold over and over again. She was finally rescued, and when she was rescued, she found out she was HIV positive. Her parents, just not wanting to have to deal with the stigma of a sex survivor as a child, they abandoned her. And so she was brought to this home and has been there ever since. Every girl in that home, every girl that I met had a story, had a past, had a journey. Every one of them had been through abuse and rape and had been sold. But what was the most amazing thing was that when I stood in front of them in this room filled with girls that were just 13, 14, 15, and I asked them, what can we do for you? What do you want from this program? One by one, they raised their hands and they began saying, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a chef. I want to be an artist. I want to be a pilot. I want to be a police officer. And the list just goes on and on. I was just amazed at their determination and their drive to make something out of their lives, even though they had been through so much. I was walking out the shelter and running behind me came, and she held my hand and said to me, मुझे English सीखना है. I want to learn English. मुझे डॉक्टर बनना है. I want to become a doctor. मुझे अमेरिका जाना है. I want to go to America. And in that moment, while she was holding my hand, I made her a promise. I made her a promise that I hope I will be able to keep.
We need to help these survivors. IHC For HER has a program, A Solution. When these survivors have to go out and look for jobs, they are not qualified. The reason for that is they do not have adequate vocational and educational training. That's where IHC For HER has done the best work. In a period of 6 months, we are able to offer to the survivor who's already really motivated to learn, where they can learn English in terms of reading, writing, and also spoken English. We offer them financial literacy course, a digital platform to learn basic skills, and also ultimately based on their aptitude, we marry their aptitude into the vocation of their choice.
And the whole idea of this program is to design solutions that can enable earning and learning, where children who have never been in education also are able to read, write and be a part of skilling. And that's when real inclusion happens. And the vision of the entire program is to internalize such programs into the government system so that there can be scale and no girl is left behind.
तभी मेरे फैमिली वाले भी मुझे बहुत सपोर्ट करते हैं. मैं घर पे जाती हूँ तो मुझे बोलते हैं हमारी बेटी ये कर रही है, हमारी बेटी वो कर रही है, हमारी बेटी पार्लर का सीखी हुई है, हमारी बेटी को ये आता है वो आता है. मतलब वो बहुत प्राउडली मुझे दूसरों के सामने में प्रेजेंट करते तो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है. और हमारे घर के बच्चे भी बोलते हैं कि दीदी हमें आपके जैसा बनना है, आप हमें ये सिखाओ वो सिखाओ.
Some of you may recall that I had shared previously a story about my 15-year-old patient. For anonymity's sake, we'll call her Emily. Emily spent every Friday night at her friend's house where her friend's father and his friends offered her methamphetamines and heroin. Eventually, Emily became addicted and she was sexually trafficked for drugs. I had tried to contact Emily's mother to request an anonymous interview for tonight's presentation. To my horror and shock, I learned that Emily is currently admitted to a drug rehabilitation facility where she is receiving intensive psychotherapy and antidepressant medication for multiple suicidal attempts. Emily was unaware that those innocent sleepovers would result in such a state for her just 1 year later. Please join me and the IHC For HER team in bringing awareness to our communities and our very vulnerable and innocent youth. Awareness is the key to prevention, and prevention is better than the cure.
We are preventing future incidences of sexual trafficking here in the United States with our recently launched awareness program. Join us in making the world a better place, but also making it safer for your children and the survivors of trafficking.